All right, we are live.
Yay!
And I
So
brought back the website, I think. I don't
nice.
know what's going on with the website, but
We should
it's yeah,
just
it's
put it
up
on
here.
dev chat. We can talk about that later. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, so big news. Couple
Okay.
of big newses. Um, as of 2 days ago,
Uh,
so 2 days ago, May 5th, 2011. So 2 days and 10 years ago, we recorded our first episode of Ruby Rogues. So
wow.
Ruby Rogues is officially 10 years old.
Damn, that's crazy.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, 10 years. Wow.
It's been such a weird journey, dude.
Yeah. Did you ever think you'd get to hear from there?
I, you know, I considered that it was something that I'd keep doing. So I guess, but you don't really like put a pin on it and go, yeah, I'm going to make it 10 years, or 20 years or whatever, 5 years. You're
Yeah.
just like, oh, well, we'll just do it as long as it makes sense to do it. Right. So anyway, pretty funny.
Yeah, that's funny. Someone was I had this company that wanted to buy Simple Programmer, and they're asking like, oh, when did you start the business? And I was like, I guess it'd be because they said how old it was a business, and I was like, I guess it's like 9 years or so. And then I was like, wait a minute, I started in 2019. I think that was when I did my first blog post. So it's like 11 years old or more, almost 12 years old, somewhere around there, which is
So
crazy.
2009.
Oh yeah, 2009. Yeah, not 19, 2009. Yeah. 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 I think that's when I did my first blog post. I'll have to check. Making the complex simple. Let me see.
Wow.
Blog. I think it was like December of 2009. I don't know how to even find. Oh yeah, November. Okay, yeah, the very first post on Simple Programmer is November 20th, 2009. So crazy.
Awesome. Yeah, I need to go back and look at the actual dates because the first podcast I did was Rails Coach, and that was sometime in early October of 2008. So
Yeah.
that's how long I've been podcasting. But yeah,
But
it's crazy. It's crazy that this stuff has been around that long.
yeah, and even just this show, like Entre Programmers, how long we've been doing this for? What, 5 or 6 years? More than that.
I think I joined in what 5 or 6 years ago, and you guys had been going for a year or two before that. So
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out when the first episode that we published was. It looks like it goes all the way back to May 2014.
wow, okay.
Yeah,
You've been going
yeah,
a
May.
year or so when I joined in.
Yeah, so that's like, so we're at like 7 years basically on the. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So much has changed in 7 years.
Oh, I know, right? Well, that's
Yeah,
that's what I put up too. I put up a tweet and I was like, yeah, 10 years ago, you know, these five people got together and recorded the first episode of Ruby Rogues, and it's amazing how much has changed. I mean,
yeah.
the whole programming community is different.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Completely different, right? It's like it's insane
Yeah.
how different. Yeah,
Some of it for the better, some of it for the worse. It's wild.
yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, and Ruby Rogues is what started everything else that turned into devchat.tv.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
crazy stuff. And then do I put numbers out there? I'll put numbers out there.
Okay.
The other thing that happened this last week was I can't remember. I think I had somebody sign up last week and then somebody sign up this week for the coaching.
Nice. Oh, good.
But the two might have been this week. I think, but anyway, this week, so I had two recurring payments come in and then I had another new payment come in. And so, yeah, that added up to about $2,000. So I made $2,000 this week just on the coaching, which I'm going, okay, it's really starting to come together. I have 6 people paying for the coaching now.
Nice.
I've had a couple people drop out just for personal stuff. But it's just like, hey, I've got this other thing that in my personal life that I have to prioritize, and I can't do the work. But it's been awesome.
Yeah,
What's been
no, it's
awesome?
good. Doing the coaching, right? Getting the coaching up. Yeah. Once you get, you get the rotation going on there. I mean, you're always going to have people come in and you're always going to have people drop off, right? Like my coaching, when I look at it over the last, 24 months, it's like a steady growth, right? There's some months where it drops off, but overall, it's like, I think last year, looking at my stats in 2020, I billed $180,000 in coaching. And this year I've billed 109,000. So it's growing. And then I think the year before that, it was like, I don't have the 2019, but I think it was probably like 150 or 140,000. So it's just been like a steady growth, but some people stay on for a long time. A lot of people churn out, and then, you get to a point where you just get like a few new people a month or so, and you just need like a little bit of growth. And that's good though. You just have to have your system for getting people in. That's the key, which sounds like you've got now. So
I'm still fine tuning that. And Manny's really been helping me with like the page, the landing page mostly. What's been interesting too, though, is that of the last 3 calls that I had with people for the accelerator, or 4 calls, I think I did 4 over the last few weeks, last week and a half. One guy was it was obvious he was not a fit, right?
Yeah.
He kind of had all the right markers in the application, but just talking to him, it was pretty obvious that what he had put into the application didn't line up with where he actually was.
Right.
And so just talking to him, I was like, all right, and so I just I was like, look, this is kind of where you need to be going. But I was like, the accelerator is not going to help you because you can't afford it, and because you're not in a place where you can really take advantage of the kind of growth we're going to get you. And but the other 3 calls that were all qualified, 2 of them signed up, and the other one we're still in contact because he's still working on getting his boss to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, sometimes you don't know, right? Like there's definitely times where I'll tell people I don't think this is a good fit. But then, I mean, I had one guy like last month, and he's telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about getting this. I got offered this software development job for $500 a month. And I was like, where are you at? Are you in India? And he's like, yeah, I'm in India. And then I was like, what, how are you paying for stuff? Like, isn't this expensive for you? He's like, oh, well, he's like, my parents are taking care of me until I move out of the home, until I get married. And he's like, so I was like, oh, I mean, if that's, I just want to make sure that you I don't want you spending $1,500 a month on coaching if you're making $500 a month. And he was like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's good. So it's, but I wouldn't have thought, I would have thought there's no way that this guy's going to be able to afford this, but maybe his parents are doing really well. So.
Yeah. One other thing that I figured out too on these sales calls is that I needed to talk less. Is that nuts?
Let them sell themselves.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that, but I needed to really understand where they were.
Right.
And then I really needed to understand where they wanted to be.
Right.
And then the other thing was and Manny kept telling me this, and I just kind of had to figure out how to make it happen. But effectively what I'm finding is making the difference is when I actually sit down and say, okay, so you're telling me this is where you want to go. What's your plan to get there? And they usually don't have one. And so if I can give them that plan,
right,
and if it fits with the accelerator, then they buy it, right?
So the difference in sales sometimes is, or what you're talking about is the difference between being a doctor and being a salesperson. Earlier on, you were being the doctor, being the salesperson, right? You were selling because you were talking a lot. And irrespective of what they were going through, you were like, okay, I'm going to sell this program.
Mhm.
But only when you decide to become a doctor can you actually listen to them, understand their pain, and see if that is something that even
Mhm.
you would want to help them with, or something not something you can help them with, and only prescribe after you have diagnosed, right? Diagnosis and prescription are your job, but prescription doesn't come before diagnosis.
Yep.
And that means you listen a lot. As a doctor, your job is to listen and ask questions, not to just sell the prescription.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
we-
the one guy too, he initially told me that he wanted to get paid to write open source software. And I just looked at him and I said, look, I said, you're poised for this other journey if you want it. I said, but if you really want to do the open source, I said, I wouldn't sign up for the accelerator because it really wouldn't have gotten him what he wanted.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, yeah, because those are the conversations I'm having now. And what's also interesting is because, yeah, I'm not pushing the solution. I'm actually trying to solve the problem. And I feel like I have a solution to the problem that for most of the people I'm talking to, that's what's getting them to buy in.
You have to get them to feel the pain
Mhm.
plenty, and then also show them the heaven plenty, as in they can't see the vision because they
Yep.
have not walked the path. They just have a vague idea. I want to make more money. I want to be a freelancer. I want to just have a business where I can, not answer to the boss, but they don't really know all the nuances of what that could entail. So you
Yeah.
have to paint a bigger dream for them than they could actually your themselves figure out, because most people cannot.
Yeah.
They are limited in their understanding. It's
Yeah. And that was the other thing is, yeah, I had to paint a very clear picture. Hey, you're going to go through these steps and this is the outcome you're going to get.
yeah, it's what I keep thinking about is the heaven and hell sales system. You literally have to show them their hell and then also show them the possible heaven
Yeah.
and the fact that they can't get there themselves. So
Mhm.
the whole sales system is like, you're going through hell right now. There is a heaven out there. I know how to get there. You haven't figured out how to get there. That's why you're still in hell. So let me help you get there. Do you want to
Yeah.
get there? So
Yeah.
heaven and hell, and the logic of heaven and hell, the emotion of heaven and hell. If you can basically get all of those working, you sell.
Yep. Absolutely. It's been interesting too, at least this last week, because I mean, literally the sales calls, so work's ramping up. So the project I work on has an annual cycle, and the big drop is the beginning of June. And so they want all the software written within the next week and a half or so. And so I've literally just been working my tail off for work, full-time job. And that's made it hard to do anything extra, especially this week, because I've literally had a meeting every freaking night. So it's also, because we talk about this, kind of for us, but we also talk about it because people listen. And so I just want to put it out there too, that sometimes this stuff comes in cycles. Like this has been building. Last week was nuts. This week is worse. And next week is probably going to be insane, but then it'll start to cool off, right? Because then they're going to be testing the software and we're just going to be doing a little bit of maintenance and fixing before we head off into things. So if you're not making the progress you want to make on the cycle that you want to make it, sometimes you just kind of have to wait for that cycle, but you still have to do what it takes to keep the momentum up, but don't be frustrated that you're not getting all of the things done, if that makes sense. And prioritize the stuff that's going to move the needle. Or in my case, a lot of it, I feel like I've had about 6 extra fires to fight this week just with the podcast network. And it's not because anything's wrong. It's just the way that things kind of came together. So there's been that as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. It's a huge progress from where you were early, like in the beginning of the year, where you were. I think you were working on the podcast what's it? The Russell Brunson style podcast thing. What?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The podcast channel.
the podcast channel. What do you call it? You were doing a virtual workshop.
Yeah.
Virtual
Podcast
seminar.
playbook.
Virtual conference.
Yeah. I put that together. Honestly, there was a ton of good stuff that came out of it. I'm incorporating a lot of it into the accelerator because the first phase is starting the podcast and the second phase is growing the podcast. And that's what the whole summit was about. But it's funny because that's been the primary value I've gotten out of that is incorporating that into the processes for devchat.tv and then showing everybody else in the accelerator how to do it.
Yeah, I think the funny thing, like for all those people who are like in the throes of business acceleration or business growth, there's a very interesting lesson here. Um, what what Chuck was trying to do at that stage was trying to do a virtual conference or sell a product that was not his audience,
Right.
sell a product to his non-audience. Not that you can't build an audience, you can always go and advertise, but if you have an established audience, to go and try to build a product that doesn't really cater to that audience while you are catering to that audience through your content is sin. It is sin. The reason why I say that is because now you have two boats while one, and you never want to have two boats when one boat is failing, right? You don't want that shit.
Right.
You want to be able to run the tide of that. You want to make one thing successful, and when you have audience figured out on that network, your job was, so your lead flow was okay. Your job was converting those leads into sales, and instead of converting those leads into sales, you said, I'm going to just abandon the whole funnel or everything that comes as a result of this traffic source, and I'm going to go and try to build a completely new traffic source and convert that traffic source and build a new business. You're basically trying to build a whole new business instead of leveraging what you already had built.
Yeah, well,
and that is the big difference. To leverage what you built is 100 times easier than trying to start a new business altogether.
Yeah, one thing I want to just add to that though was that, and I think this also speaks to some of the ebb and flow. It's been interesting too, because with the 10-year 500 episodes, we're recording episode 500 of Ruby Rogues in like 2 or 3 weeks. And so I reached out to a whole bunch of people that had been panelists on the show, right? And we've talked about some of this, and some of them were not, they don't like me. So it was interesting just in the sense that at the time I was looking to abandon the programming community deliberately, right? I mean, you kind of put it out there like, oh, you didn't realize that you should have been capitalizing on your existing audience. No, I knew that, but I was angry, and I wanted to just jettison the whole thing. And what I figured out was, and I hope this helps somebody, because I was not in a healthy place. And you have to understand that it kind of built up. There were a bunch of things that went on. Not all of it public. I mean, a lot of it. I mean, I had some twisted up stuff in my head regarding my dad's passing. I had some twisted up stuff in my head regarding some of the other relationships that I have and had that we just don't talk about because they're not really business relationships. I was struggling with a few other things personally, and so I just wanted to jettison the whole thing because it was just this weight that was dragging at me, and I had to let that go. Right? That was the other thing is I wasn't in a place to even hear Manny talk about this stuff. Like, hey, you've got this audience, why aren't you coaching them? He came in and started pushing me on that right after I went, all right, I'm going to let it all go. Like all this garbage with all these people, and the people stuff is hard. And I have screwed up a ton of it. I promise I have screwed up a ton of it, but I had to let it go. And I'm still working on making amends for some of it, but because I have screwed it up. But at the end of the day, I had to let it go, and I had to just look at where things were, and I had to look at who I could actually help and realize, okay, what am I actually doing? Who am I actually trying to make a difference for? What does this actually mean? And so when we started talking about the coaching that we're talking about now, that's when it all kind of boiled into, okay, I really can make a difference for a handful of people, right? I've heard some people talk about, you can make a small difference for a lot of people or a large difference for a few people. And that's where I was kind of coming to, was I wanted to make that big difference for a few people and help them make a wider difference for more people. And so it all lined up, and then we started doing the coaching, and I didn't know if it would work, but I figured I'd go for it. I knew I could help people. And so that's kind of how this all came about. But I think a lot of times when we talk about entrepreneurship, we get to the point where we're not really talking about like the people part of it, and not just the relationships that you have with other people, but your own internal trash that you have to deal with in your own head. And you see all the other entrepreneurs out there, and they're not talking about their trash in their heads either. And so what you're thinking is, oh, well, so-and-so has it all figured out, right? There are a handful of people out there that I really admire in the entrepreneurship space. Some of them we've talked to, some of them we've even talked to on this show. And they seem to have it all together. And then, what's interesting is you'll have a really human moment with them, and you'll figure out that they had doubts the whole time, and they struggled with all the same stupid stuff, and they had to get over it. And so, yeah, anyway, it all kind of came together at the same time. And so I don't want people to think, oh, well, Chuck was just not seeing what he had. No, Chuck knew what he had, but he didn't want to deal with it. And I had to get over wanting to deal with it before I could actually take advantage of it.
Well, yes and no. And I will add to what you've said. I agree with everything you've said, right? At the same time, an opportunity is not always clear when you're in the trenches.
Fair.
Right?
Yeah.
In the trenches, it feels like I don't know what the fuck to do next. And it's not clear how I could actually make this business work in any way, shape, or form. The things are not working the way I want them to work. And it's very, very difficult in the trenches as an entrepreneur when you are just thinking to yourself to get out of that hole. So I think what is important for all of us is to be able to have that humility, or to have that understanding that there are people out there who have answers that you may not have answers at the moment, because I believed in you on that product more than you had initially decided to believe on it, because I saw something in that community and in what you're done. And not only that, it was also a reflection of the fact that we had done a sale and we'd made like $10,000 off of a single podcast episode. So I knew that all of this was possible with your community. This was not a random crapshoot offer that we're putting together. So yes, it is, it is challenging, and hard times are challenging, but that's why you need a coach or a mentor, or you need outside help to get through that phase, rather than try and muscle through it yourself. Like, I think there is so much, there's huge importance of getting outside help, which is worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over a period of time, compared to try and muscle through it yourself and struggle through the challenges yourself, because you don't know what you don't know. At any given time, and I say this hundreds of times, like I say this all the time to my coaching clients. You can do right thing at the wrong time, wrong thing at the right time, wrong thing at the wrong time. But the only thing that pays off is the right thing at the right time. So anything else is a waste of time. So entrepreneurs can get stuck doing there are 100 things you could be doing as an entrepreneur. 99 of them will not get you the leverage that you need at this stage of the business. There's only 1 or 2 things that get you leverage at this stage of the business. And that's very hard to identify when you are in the trenches yourself. You need outside help to identify what's the high leverage work right now to get you to the next level.
Yeah. My point was just, though, that when you came in and actually, pointed out, hey, there's a way to get partially out of this hole over around the corner in the trench you're in. I wouldn't have even been open to that until I had let all of the emotional garbage go, forgiven all the people that I felt like had, done wrong to me, and was, had let go of the ripcord, because I was ready to just let it all go.
Yeah. So then the other question that we need to ask to ourselves as entrepreneurs is it actually okay, like how far should you take anything related to people and people who are like who might be hurting your business at any given stage of time? Because the question that is important as entrepreneurs to understand is that the world will not always collaborate with us, the world will not always be on our side, right? So even if the world is not on our side, how far should we allow the world to get to us? And that is really important, right? Because that's like that's that's a defining moment for a lot of different people. Like if you let the world get to you, it can destroy you. And this is whether you're an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, whether you are a Hollywood actor, whether you're, a celebrity of any kind, whoever it is. If you let people get to you, they will fuck you up, right? But our job is to not let those things get to us in many ways. And it's the challenge of being an entrepreneur to go through that phase and figure out, okay, I will get through this. And that's what you did, right? You went through it. But for anyone who's listening out there, don't let other people have power over you. Easier said than
Yep.
done, but super important to do that. Like you can't let other people dictate what you're going to do with your business, with your vision, with your mission, with your purpose. Because if other people can get in the way of your mission and purpose, then your mission and purpose are not as authentic as you thought they were. Because if other people can get in the way and try to take you away from it, then it's not a real mission or purpose, right? So it's really important in entrepreneurship to realize that there will always be people outside who will try to take you off your mission in any way, shape, or form, whether it's your closest relatives who are saying, oh, this is stupid, who says this is going to work, that sounds garbage, blah 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 blah, all the way to like people who are your haters, who want to take you down, who don't like what you're doing. There will always be people like that, but you have to stay true to your mission and your purpose and whatever is guiding you, your North Star, in order to take yourself through this phase, rather than let any of this shit affect you. It will affect you, but your job is to continue to stay true to that big why, that big mission, that big purpose.
Yep.
Yeah, I like to look at it as a game of chess, right? It's like, because then it's like nothing is personal, it's just what moves people are making, and then what is a strategic move for you to make in response, right? And then when you look at things objectively like that, then it doesn't matter. Then you don't really have any horse in the race, right? It's just this person did this, okay, that's their move. It's not personal, it's just what they did. Even if it is personal, it's still not personal, because that's just the move. And then it's like every time the turn comes to you, and it's like, well, okay, well, this is a position of the board. You don't have any control over what the position of the board is. It is what it is. So the only choice you have to make is what is the best move to make right now, and that's it. And I think that gets rid of all of the other stuff. Like, it doesn't matter who did what this person thinks, what any of the only thing that matters is what is the position of the board currently, and what is my best possible move next. So
Yeah, but you're still human, and so
yeah,
the emotions still get involved, right? And so you have to be able to evaluate that and evaluate yourself as part of the board.
Yeah, but like the humanity part, it's so critical what you just said there, Chuck. We are human, and that means we have to make our way through it, right? Rather than let people get to us, right? We are human, and people are trying to get to us. Our job is as humans to survive through that and thrive in that, right? To use that as a way, use that as an advantage rather than let it use us,
Yep.
right? Because don't what I think I'm thinking is uh, don't let of any outside stuff make you a victim of the circumstances.
No, fair.
Right.
Totally fair.
So, and that is super profound. Like one of the greatest books that I refer to all the time is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And this is where he says, like he said, to begin to think with purpose is to enter the ranks of the strong ones who make all conditions serve them and who see every failure as a pathway to attainment. And for everyone who didn't pay attention, pause, rewind. No, let me repeat it again. To begin to think with purpose is to enter the ranks of the strong ones who make all conditions serve them.
Did
All
you quote that
conditions.
from memory?
Yeah, I know this. I
Nerd.
know this by heart. This is one of my all-time favorite quotes from that book. To begin to think with purpose is to enter the ranks of the strong ones who make all conditions serve them. So remember, the purpose is foremost, right? When the purpose and goal get hazy, when they are not clearly defined, then the conditions get you. To begin to think with purpose is to enter the ranks of the strong ones who make all conditions serve them. You can make all conditions serve you if you have a clear purpose, a clear mission, a clear why, right? But if that starts to dwindle, then the conditions and the circumstances will get to you. So our job as entrepreneurs is to have that clear mission and purpose in sight every single time so that we can go back to it and keep going forward no matter how hard things get. There's this whole dichotomy of people who say, oh, you need to grind it out in order to build a great business, and people who say, oh, you need to be in the flow and enjoy and all of those things. You see, it's in some ways like the grind people are assuming that you don't enjoy the work or the mission, and that's why you have to grind and go through the hardship in a way that makes you feel like, oh my God, I'm just grinding it out. And the hustle and flow, the flow people are saying, oh, you just need to enjoy no matter what it is. Well, there is something much more important, and there is an intersection of these, which is where you are doing the shit that you enjoy, that is along the lines of what you want to do. That's your mission, your purpose, your why, whatever it is. So work doesn't ever feel like work. Grind doesn't feel like grind. And flow is just part of what you do. You enjoy the shit and you enjoy doing the work that you need to do. So that mission, the purpose, all of those things, I keep repeating that because those are the things that guide you in these tough times, right? COVID was another example of shit that went down last year with people's businesses falling apart. And it's again the same. It goes back to the same idea. Don't let the circumstances outside make you a victim. Don't let people outside make you a victim. Choose your own like reality as a result of clearly defined purpose and mission and goal.
Yeah, I'll give you a good example just of one I was going to talk about anyway. So I told you guys I hired a company to manage my inboxes, right, for my email, right? And I was paying them $1,500 a month, and they're doing. I mean, there were some mess ups with one of the people that they hired, and they're, but then overall they ended up doing a good job. But then, you know, with the mess ups that happened, at first it was kind of frustrating because one of the people they had hired was not on top of the game, and I kept on going back and forth with them, but it was still taking a lot of the email off of my plate. And so I ended up getting rid of not using their services anymore. After I started to like look at, okay, well, what needs to be done to fix this? And then what I end up doing now is I'm using an email software. I found this software called Superhuman, and it's a really efficient email management software. And then I created a bunch of filters in Gmail. And so like all of these things, like at first it was like my email was a mess. It was a nightmare. It's taking me 2 to 3 hours a day. And so then I tried to hire this company in order to fix that problem. And they sort of did, right? But and that was kind of a nightmare. And then now I got to this point where I had to manage it all by myself again. But because I had gone through that pain, I got smart enough to set up all these filters so I can filter all these things so that I'm processing 80% of my email automatically through filters in Gmail where I don't even have to touch it. But that whole process got me to that point. So all of those circumstances that could have been perceived as bad, I made them into good. I used them in order to get me to now I'm in a better state. Now I'm basically getting my email managed and I'm not paying anything. And it's better than either of the other conditions, but it's because all of those things, circumstances, like you could view those circumstances as bad, or you can take those circumstances and make it serve you. And each step along the path, I tried to figure out, okay, well, how can I make this work for me, and ultimately end up with a goal where a result where things are working for me instead of being something that's against me. So, all that sequence of events was a good sequence of events in my mind, even though someone else could look at that and say, well, there's a waste of time. You ended up spending this money, whatever. In my viewpoint, no, it was good because it brought me here. So,
well, and I think it's interesting too, because you talked about like the board and where it was, and we kind of talked about, how we got here and stuff like that. A lot of times when the board set against me, at least part of the way that it got set against me was my own moves, right? And you have to evaluate things for what they really are, and then evaluate, where that takes you from there. And sometimes it's hard to get around that, but then later, then you see that, oh, well, it turns out that this was an advantage in this other way.
And see, and the set against you is just an illusion, right? Yep. Because you're never swimming against the stream unless you choose to. It's like, Tony Robbins is pretty famous for saying, and maybe he didn't originate the quote, but saying that nothing's happening to you, is happening for you. And what that really, really means, like, some people misinterpret that and they're like, oh, does that, like, that's not true. That's like, everything is not happening for me. It's not like I can't take bad circumstances and think that that's putting me in the direction I want to go. And the key is that stop fighting and stop thinking that there's a direction you want to go, right? Or that you need to go. It's like, instead of forcing your way, it's letting go and saying, okay, well, it's all happening for me, in the sense that all of these things, like if you have a plan, and you're seeing the pieces are stacked against you according to that plan, it's actually, what it's doing is it's actually making you stronger. It's an obstacle that you're overcoming, which is giving you the strength to make it further in your journey. And so, like, everything that you see, it's like I said, it's just a choice. Like, you can see it as the board is stacked against you, or you can see it as, look, these pieces are here in order to create this challenge, in order to make me level up so that I'll be stronger to conquer the next challenge, right? As opposed to when we see it as like, this is the way it has to go. And then it's the same thing, again, like the obstacle's away, right? It's like when you see that obstacle and you're like, it's blocking me, then that's one viewpoint. It's, and you can see that viewpoint. But if you see that as, okay, there's this thing that's in my way, well, this is causing me to now go around, or to adapt, or to go a different way. It's actually, it's bringing me a better way, right? It's always like, it's bringing me a better way, as opposed to this is stopping me or blocking me. And so it's always a choice, like, to view it as that or not, and to really to let go, to be like, okay, whatever my plan is, you have to have a plan, but then your plan is not the ultimate plan. That's not the ultimate way that it's going to go down. It's like, your plan has to change based on what the pieces are showing you. You cannot be fighting against the river. You cannot be swimming against the river. Whatever direction the current's going, it's just like judo. You can use the direction of that current to now feel you in that movement forward.
Yep. So it's not blocking you, it's challenging you to level up.
Right.
Chuck's like, yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, guys, no, I completely agree. And it's funny too, because I actually had one person tell me, for the things that he was unhappy with me about, I admitted that I had messed some stuff up, and he actually told me that he didn't think that I would ever get to the point where I would admit it. And I think that's part of the journey too. I mean, a lot of times we look at, am I strong enough to overcome the next obstacle? But, and Russell Brunson talks about this, like with the hero's journey and stuff, is it's not just the events, but it's the personal growth that happens at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an understanding, or maybe it is one of the most important parts of the puzzle of life in some ways, is being able to ask yourself every single time when you are faced with a challenge, you have to ask yourself, how is that, how is this going to be an advantage for me? How is this going to actually turn out better for me as a result? And it's a very hard thing to train yourself to do. But if you look back at life, like one of the easiest ways to think about that is you have to look back at your entire life and look at all the good stuff that happened and then try to correlate it to how some of the bad shit actually led to that good stuff. Right? Because there's always that correlation. You just have chosen over time to not look at that. So if you look at the, well, I'm saying not you, I'm just talking in generalities here now, but the victories have been a result of some of the early defeats. A lot of people make the correlation that the defeats are challenging, the victories are great. But if we can actually correlate them and we see the victories as a result of the defeats or the victories as a result of the challenges, then you start to reconfigure your mind to believe that every crisis comes with an opportunity and it becomes a part of your normal conditioning.
Yeah, Josh used to get pissed at me all the time because whenever he would give me bad news when we were working together in Simple Programmer, I'd be like, "That's good because he's," and he would be like, "I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say that's good because," but that's the way I feel like you have to look at it. Is because it's like it's the whole thing you've heard. You either win or you learn, right? So either outcome is good. It's fine. It's either like I either already get what I want immediately, and that's great, or I become stronger and I learned some lesson or I learned something that I lacked. And that's great too, because I'm leveling up. So whichever one you're going to give me, I'm good. I'm good with it. You know, whatever it is, I'll take defeat or I'll take victory. It doesn't matter because there is no defeat. Yep. It's just me learning and growing through the process. So yeah. So I think then that it also takes the pressure off too, because it's like, you know, whatever happens, happens. I'm cool with it. I've made peace with whatever happens. I'm gonna just do my thing, and if I get a lot of victories, awesome. If I get a lot of, you know, failures with a lowercase f, that's fine, because I'm just learning a whole bunch of things and gaining character and perspective. And even the most fucked up shit that happens to you, you know, there's always that's good because, and that's good because might just be because now you're going through such a harrowing experience that you are building an inner strength that you could only develop by going through some really rough shit. And that's, you know, and that's a good thing. That makes you stronger. It makes you better. And it also makes you better to help other people, because, you know, sometimes if you haven't been down to the depths of hell, you can't really help someone who's there. And so, you know, so like I said, there's always a way that it's good. So.
Yep.
Yeah. You almost have to look at every circumstance in life from past as well, like that. You have to reconfigure your past programming to believe that everything that has happened has actually turned out to be good. Because for as long as your past holds you back, it will have claws into the future, because you will associate the past failures to like, oh, that shit like that happened in the past. Yeah, like this is part of like, fuck, why is this happening to me again? Right? Why is this happening to me again, or why is this happening to me, is not how you want your past to be configured in your head. So you have to reconfigure the past to believe that shit was actually good. Almost every failure was actually a good thing for you.
Yeah, there's actually an exercise. Oh, go ahead.
No, I want to hear the exercise.
Okay, yeah. There's actually an exercise. I think it's either in psychocybernetics or what's his name? The guy that took over psychocybernetics.
Dan Kennedy.
Not Dan Kennedy, the other guy. I met him in Tampa when I lived right next to him. He had a martial arts thing, like meant like a prison fitness or something. You know what I'm talking about? He was a famous copywriter for a while. I can't think of his name. He did a forward for the new psychocybernetics. He's let me see.
I thought Dan Kennedy was the one who took over and bought rights to psychocybernetics.
It's Matt Fury. Yes, Matt Fury. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know if
too. So
okay, I'm not sure if it originated from psychocybernetics or something that Matt Fury, because I heard it from one of Matt Fury's tapes, and he was talking about how like the exercise you do is you go back in time and you take your memories, because he was talking about how like he had gotten someone had hit him with a beer bottle and like cut his eye, and it was like complete permanent nerve damage and stuff like that. And it was a traumatic experience, and he had carried this for a long time. But he talked about doing this exercise where like you go back to your memories and you replay the memory with a different perspective, right? The perspective of the person, the perpetrator's perspective, like seeing through their eyes, the perspective of God's perspective, seeing from up above and seeing down on it. And like you play it back, and then you restore that memory with the new feelings associated and perspective of it, instead of, because we hold on to these memories and we see them as trauma, as bad things, as negative things, and then they stick with us. But then, and there's some real science behind this. In fact, that's why when they question people in court on their memory, they don't just take someone's memory, because memories can be altered. Like what you remember is not what actually happened. It's the feelings associated to it. And you can, when you replay a memory in your head and you restore that memory, it can change that memory substantially. That's why they're, like testimonials in court, especially, hypnotic type of, where they extract the memories. It's not trustworthy, because you can restore your memory. So anyway, the whole objective, or the whole point of this, is that you can restore your own memories with different feelings and thoughts associated to them. So then, instead of, let's say that you have some embarrassing situation where you feel bad about yourself because you got embarrassed so badly, whatever, you restore that memory, and instead you view it from a different perspective, and you see it as a good thing. You see it as something that strengthened you. You see it as a different understanding of that memory, and then you restore that memory in your mind, and now you're not carrying that burden anymore. But it's an interesting exercise that I can't remember if it might be, it's kind of like theater of the mind in psychocybernetics, but I don't know if Matt Fury added that component to it. It's really an NLP type of technique, but it works. It works really well. I use it with a lot of my coaching clients, especially when people are holding on to like some kind of bitterness or anger towards someone, or it's like resentment. And it's like, you look at it, and even the most traumatic event that happens to you, you can view it from a different lens, a different angle, and then restore that memory in a way that benefits you, instead of one that harms you.
So if I were to pick up cybernetics, because this sounds really interesting, I kind of want to read through it. I'm seeing like a whole bunch of different versions of it on Audible.
Or you could watch my summary.
I could watch your summary
in the Mental Toughness book summary pack for all those who are listening. No.
Nice plug.
Yeah.
So
I'll give you a discount.
There's a book summary in here too. I could just pick that up. No, I'm curious. Do I want like the updated and revised version?
Yeah, I like one by Kennedy.
By Malton Kennedy.
There's one. Yeah, I like the new Psycho-Cybernetics. I feel like was
okay. That's the Dan Kennedy one.
Yeah. Well, there's the new one, and then there's the updated and revised.
Yeah, one of them.
Oh, this one's a speech.
Oh, okay.
And then the other one, I'm guessing, is the book.
I'm not sure what happened to maybe there was some kind of issue with it, because I remember Matt Fury had like something on there, but maybe, I don't know, maybe the new Psycho-Cybernetics though is the one that because it's updated for I forgot, there's a few things in there, and it's written really well. So, but
yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, you won't go wrong with either though. The older one is shorter read. So that's the other thing. But both are great.
So I've got to jump off in like 15 minutes. What I kind of want to just get an update with where you guys are at with Bulldog Mindset and 2000 books.
Let me see.
Anything
where am
new?
I at? I mean, the big thing for me was the email stuff. I've got the coaching is actually doing pretty good. I need to get on. I've been dropping, like losing members on the membership. And I have to figure out how to police the Facebook group, unfortunately, because someone posted this video clip where Sean Connery was talking about it's okay to, to smack a woman if she deserves it. And there's this lady that's actually an agent in LA from that was going to do a Bulldog Mindset show. She emailed me and she's like, did you know that this guy said this in there? And so, and I try to keep it as much as free speech as possible in there, but it's like I can't have people teaching the completely wrong things. And then so I got to figure out some way to police the Facebook group. So I did a response video talking about how like you don't respond to anyone with violence. Like that's not the way. But
you can police it by making a moderator and having every post go through a moderator first.
Yeah, I mean, I've got, and I hate to do that, but I guess I have to do that because it's, So anyway, that's what I'm kind of trying to figure out.
So you're becoming the Facebook of Facebook groups. He's like, I hate to moderate Donald Trump's in there, but I'm going to moderate the fuck out of Donald Trump this time.
Well, it's different because the community espouses a certain set of principles on what it is to be a man in masculinity, and it's very important that the Bulldog mindset principles are, obviously people can post things that are, questions and whatnot, and they don't have to agree 100%, but at the same time, I don't want people encouraging people down the wrong path because people have come there for guidance, so.
Sounds something very similar that happened a few months ago. In our political sphere that people were up in arms against.
What? Against what?
Against what, Facebook banning Donald Trump for saying something.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's totally different. That's actual like free speech. This is a private community that's specifically geared towards a goal. That's a different thing.
I don't know, man. Like the editorial, as soon as editorial situations come into play, suddenly you have to evaluate everything for what it is, which is, if you're going to editorialize anything, then does the community feel that they're getting editorialized, and is that a good thing for them? So and I'm not taking the sides of Donald Trump. I'm not taking the sides of the idiot who wrote women should be smacked or whatever. I'm just trying to, or I'm not taking sides of Facebook either. I'm just trying to create I'm just asking a question, which is unfortunately a challenge that most of us will face at some point, which Facebook had to face, which Twitter had to face, and which you are facing, and which everyone faces when they're running a group of people who are saying something. And where do you draw the line where people have quote unquote freedom of speech, and as soon as you try to editorialize that, then people are going to be questioning that.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's true.
I think though that how do I put it? So the one major difference I'm seeing between like Facebook and John's group is that Facebook they're out there kind of being the public square, right? So they're not out there to promote a specific set of principles, ideas, lifestyle, any of that, right? Where John is. And so I think John in his situation, in fact, I'll just say it right to John because it's right here. I think in your situation, it's a little bit different. If you set the expectations that, hey, if you're putting stuff out, people are here for guidance, just like you said, people are here for guidance. And so if you are putting ideas out there that, come in conflict with the ideas and principles behind the Bulldog mindset, then I reserve the right to take it down. Right. And I think that is also kind of the main beef with Facebook was that, at least from one point of view, they weren't even handed, and their policy actually didn't give them, like their policy is we'll take you down for, I think it's a month. And then if you violate again, then we take further action. And with Donald Trump, they took him down indefinitely, which was outside of the expectation. And so that's the other issue there. And so I think mostly if you just put forward, hey, just a clear, hey, this is what we're here for. And so I am going to make sure that everything here is in line with the Bulldog mindset, then I think you have a lot more leeway than say a Facebook would, where they're trying to be the public square where anybody can say anything.
Well, that's not true though, because Facebook has a set of rules and values and principles that guide their business, right? Facebook has decided that they are going to be the place where people come to connect and make people feel inclusive or whatever that
Mhm.
is. That is their
Fair
guiding
enough.
principle and value system and rules. And they say, if you don't play by those rules, we're going to take you out. And now you're saying John should do the same. So the question then is that something what like in this moment are we saying that what Facebook did 4 months ago was actually okay when they banned Donald Trump or when they shut down Donald Trump's posts, or are we saying that, well, we make the choice to let people do or say what they want to say, because
Yeah, I
that was
guess
the
my
whole
point,
fight.
I think my whole point is if you put out a set of rules and a set of expectations. So if you violate, here's what's going to happen. If you violate again, here's what's going to happen. If you violate again, then, right. So then it's, the first time you'll get a warning. The second time you might get muted for a month or a week or whatever. And then the third time ban hammer, right?
How is that
And
different from what Facebook does? It's the
they,
same
they
exact
had their
thing.
rules and they had their process, and none of it said anything about a permanent ban.
Can you show me the rules and the processes there? Can you give me the exact
Not right now.
URL for that? No, because the problem is what you're arguing for is exactly what you argued against a few months ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a tricky thing for sure, right? It's like, yeah. I mean, ultimately, like I can ban anyone for any reason
Yeah.
that I want to, even if I just don't like their mustache, So, but that's
easier to stomach if it's even handed.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on what expectations you set up.
Yeah.
And then you can always go somewhere else, right? That's always the, so yeah, I guess there's a difference between disliking the way that someone polices their their community versus it being morally or legally wrong, right? And so that's, I think that's the clear distinction. Is it's like I dislike what Facebook did, but I don't consider it to be a morally wrong or legally wrong action, because the highest, like, to truly have freedom of speech or freedom in general means that you must allow people to do whatever they want to do, as long as they're not harming other people, regardless of what their intentions are, regardless of what their beliefs are, and to restrict as little as possible, even if that means them restricting other people. So, which again, and then by that same token, you have the right to not use the service. You have the right to not participate, to go somewhere else. So there's, that's the overarching, as much as it's a tough pill to swallow, that's the overarching truth of it. So I don't know. It is a complicated issue, though. It is because, like, just from an individualistic standpoint of saying that I want to have my people to be able to speak their mind as much as possible, but at the same time, I don't want. It was like I did a video response to it, and I was like, look, I don't want like the 10% of bad apples to spoil the bunch, right? So, I'm not in here every day correcting people's viewpoints on what is actually the Bulldog mindset and what we represent. So to some degree, I have to say, okay, look, if you post kind of bullshit all the time that doesn't align with the principles, I'm just going to take it down. Because as much as I would like to have people have as much free speech as possible, I have people in here that are at various stages of maturity. And when they read things and they see it's in the Bulldog mindset community, and other people are commenting on it and saying, yeah, I agree, we should smack women when they're being ornery, then it's, people interpret that as that is what the Bulldog mindset is about, or that is an approved thing or principle. So yeah, so it's a complicated issue. There's no doubt about it. Like, because either way, you kind of have to walk the balance and give people as much freedom as possible, but at the same time, you have to reel in to some degree. Otherwise, you'll be creating the wrong kind of community and the wrong kind of message, because I don't want to create a forum for degenerates. Because what ends up happening too is like people privately message me, or they privately message this girl that was in the Facebook group too, and they're like, I agree with you, this is messed up, but I don't say anything, because if I say anything against it, then people will pile on me and harass me. And I was like, shit, that's where I drew the line and said, okay, well, I have to take some kind of intervention here, because I don't want the outspoken bad apples to rule, because they have no fear of reprisal or recourse. So they are going to be the overwhelming message. And whereas 90% of the people that actually do subscribe to the Bulldog Mindset principles will keep their mouth shut because they're afraid of reprisal. So that's the complexity of a community. So there's just no simple answer.
I agree 100%. I'm 100% with you right now. And I do believe morality is one of those subjective things, unfortunately. And what's morally right today in this group right now between the three of us is very different from morality that might be existent in another part of the world. And that's why bigger the organization gets, the more blanket those morality principles get, or the more strict those morality principles get to encompass everything. And that's why large organizations put down the hammer much quickly than you would put down. You're putting the hammer down at a much later point down the line. A larger organization would have to put the hammer down much earlier down the line, because they have an obligation just as much as you do to serve their community and their the people that they're making money off of, right? People that they're doing business with. So 100% with you on that.
Yep.
All right. Should we do our thoughts?
Yeah, I've got to go soon.
Let's do it.
I guess I'll just go with what I said before, which is that, don't just treat life like a game of chess, right? Don't have a horse in the game. Don't want to be right. Want to find the truth, right? It's like holding on to beliefs as if they're personal, as if they are in some way part of who you are, is a sure recipe for being butthurt. And instead, just like the chessboard, if your whole objective is to find out the rules that control the game, and you don't care whether the rule that you think operates the game is right or not, but just to find what is the actual overarching rule, then you'll find the path. But if you hold on to what you believe, and you have a horse in the race, then it's much harder to find the truth, and you're going to be a lot more insulted and butthurt in life. So
yeah, I mean, the thing that I will add to that is there are some things that are true. There are some beliefs that are going to get you where you want to wind up, but you have to also be humble enough to evaluate those, right? And look at things and go, okay, what evidence is there? What can I keep learning? Where can I keep, exploring? What am I not seeing about myself? And I'm going to make this into my thought, right? But, and then I think that's what you're talking about, John, is just being open to, okay, this is, how I, the things that I see as true right now, the things that I understand to be true at the moment. And then, being willing to, or flexible enough to go and say, okay, what other evidence is there? What other things should I be considering? And, it all kind of comes back to some of the ideas that we've talked about before here with like personal responsibility, right? So you take personal responsibility for your own growth. You take personal responsibility for the journey, and you take personal responsibility for the outcomes. And all of that is kind of tied up in this, right? And as you continue to learn and continue to grow, I mean, I'm going back and trying to correct past mistakes, but it has more to do with the kind of person I want to become, right? Than out of anything else. It's not because somebody else hates me for it. It's not because something else. It's because at the end of the day, the things that I want to reflect on me matter to me, right? And the things that I want to accomplish can be accomplished only based on what is actually true. And so about my situation and about myself. So yeah, I have to continue to explore these areas because that's the only way that I can get what I want.
Yeah. I'm going to reiterate the quote I talked about earlier in the day because it's one of my all-time favorite quotes. And even if one person gets it today, it'll be worth it. And that quote is from As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It says, "To begin to think with purpose is to enter the ranks of the strong ones who make all conditions serve them and who see every failure as a pathway to attainment." That's it.
Very nice.
Awesome.
All right. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
All right, man.
Take care.